What would you do if the one person you trusted most, the one you shared your childhood dreams and secrets with, turned out to be the architect of your pain? I am Seraphine Quill, and at 58 years old, I thought I knew my family. I thought I knew my brother Zephyr. But on a crisp October evening, at what was supposed to be a joyful family gathering, I learned a truth that shattered my heart and set me on a path I never imagined. This is the story of how I uncovered Zephyr's lies and how one bold moment made him regret it forever.
Subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from, because this story is about to take you on an emotional journey you won't soon forget.
I've always been the glue of our family. Growing up in a small Ohio town, I was the older sister who bandaged Zephyr's scraped knees, braided our little sister Aurelia's hair, and helped Mom with dinner when Dad worked late at the factory. Even after I married my high school sweetheart Cornelius and moved to a cozy ranch house in Columbus, I stayed close to my siblings. When Mom passed 10 years ago, I became the one organizing Thanksgiving's calling to check in and making sure everyone was okay. Zephyr, 5 years younger, was always the charming one, quick with a joke, always the life of the party. I adored him even when his big dreams led to bigger messes. I bailed him out of debt twice, no questions asked, because that's what sisters do. This particular October, I was buzzing with excitement. Aurelia's 50th birthday was coming up, and I'd spent weeks planning a celebration at my house. I wanted it to be perfect, a night to bring us all together after years of drifting apart. I'd saved up $5,000 from my part-time bookkeeping job to cover everything: a catered spread of fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and green beans, a 3-tier vanilla cake from the best bakery in town, and a playlist of Aurelia's favorite Motown hits. I even rented a tent for the backyard, picturing us laughing under string lights as the autumn leaves fell. Cornelius helped me set up his steady hands, calming my nerves. "Sarah," he said, squeezing my shoulder, "you've outdone yourself." I believed it would be a night we'd all cherish. The morning of the party, I woke early, the air crisp with that Ohio fall scent, damp leaves and wood smoke. I slipped into my favorite navy dress, the one that hugged my curves just right, and pinned my graying hair into a neat bun. I wanted to look as good as I felt. In the kitchen, I arranged photo albums on the dining table, pictures of Aurelia as a gap-toothed kid, Zephyr and me building forts, our parents smiling on their old porch swing. Each photo was a stitch in the tapestry of our family, and I couldn't wait to share those memories. Guests started arriving at 5 p.m. Aurelia's husband Ambrose, her 2 teenage kids, a few cousins and neighbors I'd known for decades. The tent glowed with warm light, and the smell of fried chicken filled the air. Aurelia hugged me tight, her eyes sparkling. "Sarah, this is incredible," she whispered. I beamed, my heart full. But as the evening wore on, I noticed Zephyr hadn't shown up. He'd promised to be there by 6 p.m., joking about bringing his famous cornbread. I texted him, then called, but no answer. A knot formed in my stomach. Zephyr was flaky sometimes, but missing Aurelia's birthday, that wasn't like him. By 8 p.m., the party was in full swing, but I couldn't shake my unease. I stepped into the kitchen to grab more ice, and that's when I overheard it, a hushed conversation between 2 cousins near the back door. "Did you hear what Zephyr's been saying about Sarah?" one whispered. My heart stopped. I leaned closer, the ice bucket cold against my chest. "He told everyone at the bar last week that she's been hoarding Mom's inheritance," the other said. "Said she's got thousands stashed away, keeping it from him and Aurelia." The words hit like a slap. Inheritance. Mom left us a small life insurance policy split evenly 3 ways. I'd used my share to pay off Cornelius's medical bills after his heart scare. There was no secret fortune. Why would Zephyr say that I stood frozen, the hum of the party fading? My brother, my Zeph, was spreading lies about me. The boy I'd protected, the man I'd trusted, was he betraying me? I didn't know why, but I knew this was only the beginning. That night, under the glow of my carefully planned party, a fire sparked inside me. I wasn't going to let this go. The ice bucket slipped from my hands, clattering onto the kitchen floor. The cubes scattered like my thoughts, cold and chaotic. I pressed my back against the wall, the cousin's whispers still burning in my ears. Zephyr, my brother, was telling people I'd stolen Mom's inheritance. The idea was absurd, but the pain of his lie cut deeper than any truth could. I'd spent my life holding our family together, and now he was tearing it apart with a story that wasn't even real. The party's laughter drifted in from the backyard, but it felt like a world away. I was alone in that kitchen, drowning in a betrayal I didn't yet understand. I forced myself to move, scooping up the ice with trembling hands. My navy dress felt too tight, the bun in my hair too heavy. I wanted to march out to the tent call Zephyr and demand answers, but Aurelia's birthday wasn't the place for a scene. I'd worked too hard for this night. So I plastered on a smile, rejoined the party, and handed out cake slices, all while my heart pounded. Every glance from a guest felt like a question. Did they believe Zephyr's lies? Had they heard I was a thief? The string lights swayed in the autumn breeze, but their glow couldn't warm the chill inside me. That night, after the last guest left, and Cornelius was asleep, I sat at the kitchen table, the photo album still open. There was Zephyr at 10, grinning with a fishing pole, his freckled face full of trust. There was me, 15, teaching him how to ride a bike. I'd always been his protector, his cheerleader. When he lost his job in his 30s, I lent him $10,000 to keep his apartment. When his marriage fell apart, I drove 3 hours to pick him up from a bar, no questions asked. And now he was painting me as a greedy liar. The betrayal wasn't just in the lie, it was in how it twisted our history, making my love for him feel like a mistake. The next morning, I called Zephyr. No answer. I texted, "Where were you last night? We need to talk." Nothing. By noon, my worry turned to anger. I drove to his apartment, a rundown complex on the edge of Columbus. His truck was parked out front, but he didn't answer the door. I knocked until my knuckles ached, then sat on the curb, the October sun too bright for my mood. That's when I saw it, a stack of mail spilling out of his mailbox, including a bank statement with my name on it. My stomach dropped. Why did Zephyr have my bank statement? I didn't touch it. Snooping felt wrong, but the sight of it was a splinter in my mind. Something was off, and I needed answers. Back home, I dug through my files. Years ago, Mom's life insurance had paid out $30,000 split 3 ways. My $10,000 went to Cornelius's hospital bills after his heart scare. Aurelia used hers for her kids' college funds, and Zephyr, well, he'd said he invested his in a business that never took off. I'd never questioned it, but now I wondered. Had he blown through his share and decided to invent a story about me hoarding more? I called Aurelia, hoping she'd heard something. "Sarah, I don't know what's going on," she said, her voice tight. "But Zephyr's been acting strange. He asked me last month if you'd ever mentioned Mom's jewelry." Mom's jewelry? She'd left us each a piece. Mine was a simple gold locket I wore every day. There was no hidden stash. Aurelia's words gnawed at me. I started noticing things I'd ignored. Zephyr had stopped calling me sis, a nickname he'd used since we were kids. At our last family dinner, he'd been cagey, dodging questions about his new job. And then there was the bar. I knew the one our cousins meant Murphy's, a dive where Zephyr hung out. I wasn't the type to barge into a bar, but I needed to know what he was saying. That evening, I pulled on a jacket, told Cornelius I was running errands, and drove to Murphy's. The place reeked of stale beer and regret, the jukebox blaring some country tune. I spotted a guy Zephyr worked with, Tiberius, nursing a drink at the counter. "Tiberius," I said, sliding onto a stool, my voice steadier than I felt. "What's Zephyr been saying about me?" He looked uneasy, swirling his glass. "Sarah, I don't want to stir trouble. Just tell me I pressed. He sighed. He's been telling everyone you got more than your share of your mom's money. Said you've got a secret account, maybe $50,000, and you're keeping it from him and Aurelia. He's pissed, says you owe him. My throat tightened. $50,000, it was a fantasy. My savings were modest, barely enough for emergencies. I thanked Tiberius and left the neon sign buzzing behind me like a warning. Driving home, I felt like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. Zephyr wasn't just spreading rumors, he was building a narrative, one that made me the villain. But why I thought back to the bank statement in his mailbox. Was he after something more than just gossip? I remembered a conversation from months ago when he'd asked about my retirement account, joking that I must be sitting on a gold mine. I'd laughed it off, but now it felt sinister. Had he been planning this all along? The next day, I went to my bank. The teller, a kind woman named Callista, pulled up my account. Everything looked normal, but when I mentioned the statement at Zephyr's, her brow furrowed. "Let's check for any linked accounts," she said. After a few clicks, she paused. "Mrs. Quill, there's a joint account opened 3 years ago, tied to your name and your brother's. It's got $2,000 in it, but there's a pending transfer request for $10,000 from your personal savings." My blood ran cold. I hadn't opened any joint account. Zephyr had used my information, maybe from old paperwork I'd given him during his divorce. He wasn't just lying, he was trying to steal from me. I left the bank, my hands shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. The Columbus skyline blurred through my tears. I'd given Zephyr everything, my trust, my money, my love, and he'd repaid me with deception. The joint account was just the start. If he was bold enough to forge my name, what else was he capable of? I thought of Mom's locket, the one thing I had left of her. Was that what he was after too? Or was it something bigger? Something I hadn't yet seen? As I pulled into my driveway, my phone buzzed. A text from Zephyr. "Sorry I missed the party. Can we talk tomorrow?" I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply button. He didn't know I'd been to the bank. He didn't know I was on to him. For the first time, I saw my brother not as the boy I'd raised, but as a stranger with a motive I didn't fully understand. I didn't reply. Instead, I walked inside the locket, heavy against my chest, and started thinking. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Zephyr's text glowed on my phone screen, but I didn't answer. The words, "Can we talk tomorrow?" felt like a trap, each letter laced with the deceit I'd just uncovered. A joint account opened in my name without my consent, and a pending transfer of $10,000 from my savings. My brother wasn't just spreading lies. He was stealing from me. The locket around my neck, Mom's gold keepsake, felt heavier than ever, as if it carried the weight of every sacrifice I'd made for him. I sat in my dark kitchen, the Columbus night pressing against the windows, and tried to make sense of it. How had we gotten here? How had my Zeph become this stranger? For days, I kept quiet. I didn't tell Cornelius about the bank or the bar rumors. He'd worry, and his heart couldn't take more stress. Instead, I went through the motions, cooking dinner, balancing clients' books, smiling, when Aurelia called to thank me again for her birthday party. But inside, I was unraveling. Every creak of the house sounded like Zephyr's footsteps. Every glance from a neighbor felt like they'd heard his lies. I wanted to confront him, to demand why he'd forged my name and spread stories about a non-existent inheritance. But something held me back. Maybe it was fear of losing him completely, or maybe it was the hope that this was all a mistake. So I waited and I watched. I kept helping too, because that's who I was. When Zephyr finally called, a week later, his voice was all charm, like nothing had happened. "Sis, I'm sorry about the party," he said, the old nickname jarring. "Work's been crazy. Can I swing by for dinner Sunday?" Against my better judgment, I said yes. I cooked his favorite meatloaf and scalloped potatoes and set the table with Mom's old china. When he arrived, he hugged me like always, his cologne sharp and familiar. But his eyes darted around the room, lingering on the locket at my throat, on the photo album still stacked on the counter. "You're always so sentimental, Sarah," he said, grinning. I forced a laugh, but my skin prickled. Was he looking for something? Dinner was tense. Cornelius chatted about football, but Zephyr was distracted, checking his phone, steering the conversation to money. "You ever think about selling this house?" he asked Fork, hovering over his plate. "Must be worth a fortune now." I brushed it off, saying we loved our home, but his question lingered like smoke. After he left, I checked my bank account online. The transfer request was still pending, flagged for review. I called the bank the next morning and froze my accounts, my voice shaking as I explained the fraud. Callista, the teller, was gentle, but firm. "We'll close the joint account, Mrs. Quill, but you should talk to a lawyer." This could be serious. A lawyer. The word felt like a brick in my chest. Suing my own brother. I wasn't ready for that, not yet. I tried to keep the peace, but the lies were spreading. At the grocery store, a neighbor asked, "You doing okay, Sarah? Heard you've got some family drama." Her tone was kind, but I saw the curiosity in her eyes. I mumbled something vague and hurried away, my cart wobbling. At church, an old friend pulled me aside. "Is it true you're holding on to your mom's money?" she whispered. I wanted to scream that there was no money, that Zephyr was lying, but I just shook my head and left early. The rumors were a poison seeping into every corner of my life. I felt invisible, reduced to a caricature of greed in the eyes of people I'd known for decades. Then came the ally I didn't expect. At my bookkeeping job, I worked part-time for a small law firm, mostly handling payroll. One afternoon, as I filed invoices, my co-worker Thessaly noticed my silence. Thessaly was in her 60s, sharp as a tack, with a warm smile and a no-nonsense streak. "Sarah, you look like you're carrying the world," she said, sliding a coffee across my desk. I hesitated, then spilled everything: the rumors, the joint account, Zephyr's betrayal. She listened, her eyes narrowing. "Sounds like your brother's got a plan, and it's not a good one," she said. "My cousin went through something similar. You need to protect yourself." She scribbled a name on a post-it Eudora slate, a lawyer who specialized in financial fraud. "Call her," Thessaly urged. "You're not alone in this." I met Eudora the next day at her office, a small space cluttered with legal books and family photos. She was about my age, with gray curls and a voice that was both kind and commanding. I told her everything, my hands twisting in my lap. She took notes, then leaned forward. "Seraphine, your brother's actions, forging your name, spreading lies, could be identity theft, maybe even defamation. But we need proof. Start gathering documents, bank statements, emails, anything tied to him." She also suggested checking my credit report for other accounts I didn't know about. Her confidence gave me a spark of hope, but it also made the betrayal real. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Zephyr was trying to hurt me. Eudora's advice lit a fire under me. I spent nights combing through old emails, digging up loan agreements from when I'd bailed Zephyr out. I found a message from 2 years ago where he'd asked for my social security number for a job application. I'd given it, trusting him. Now I saw it for what it was, a piece of his plan. I pulled my credit report, my heart sinking, as I found a credit card in my name opened last year with a $5,000 balance. I hadn't applied for it. The statements were being sent to Zephyr's address. My hands shook as I printed the evidence, each page a stab of betrayal. How long had he been using me? The breaking point came a month after Aurelia's party, at a family dinner at Aurelia's house. I'd hoped to keep things normal, but Zephyr was there, all smiles, acting like nothing was wrong. He even toasted me, saying, "To Sarah, the heart of our family." The words felt like a mockery. After dinner, while clearing plates, I overheard him in the living room talking to Aurelia's husband, Ambrose. "Sarah's got money stashed somewhere," he said, his voice low. "I know she's hiding it. Mom always favored her." I froze the dish in my hand, nearly slipping. Aurelia, standing nearby, heard it too. Her face paled, and she grabbed my arm, pulling me into the kitchen. "Sarah, is this true?" she asked, her voice trembling. I shook my head, tears welling. "Leah, there's no money. Zephyr's lying. He's been stealing from me, forging my name, opening accounts." I told her about the joint account, the credit card, the rumors. Her eyes widened, then hardened. "I knew he was acting strange," she said. "Last week he asked to borrow $3,000, said it was for a car. I said no, and he got angry." Aurelia hugged me, her embrace fierce. "We'll figure this out together," she promised. In that moment, I wasn't alone anymore. Aurelia was my ally, my sister, and her belief in me was a lifeline. But it was Zephyr's smugness that pushed me over the edge. Later that night, as he left Aurelia's house, he clapped me on the shoulder, his grin too wide. "You're looking stressed, sis," he said. "Maybe you should take a vacation with all that cash you've got." His eyes glinted like he knew he was untouchable. That was it, the moment I snapped. I wasn't going to let him play me anymore. Driving home, I called Eudora. "I'm ready," I said. "I want to stop him." She told me to bring everything I'd found to her office tomorrow. "We'll build a case," she said. And Seraphine, "You're stronger than you know." That night, I sat at my desk, the locket in my hand, and started planning. I wasn't just going to protect my money. I was going to protect myself. Zephyr thought he could break me, but he didn't know the strength I'd been building all these years. The strength of a woman who'd raised a family, survived loss, and kept loving even when it hurt. I wasn't his sis anymore. I was Seraphine Quill, and I was done being his victim. The locket gleamed under my desk lamp, its worn gold surface catching the light like a tiny beacon. I'd worn it every day since Mom passed a reminder of her love, her strength. Now it felt like a talisman urging me forward. Zephyr's smug grin from Aurelia's dinner replayed in my mind, his taunt about my cash like a dare I couldn't ignore. He thought he'd won, thought he could steal my money, my reputation, my peace, and walk away untouched. But I wasn't the Sarah he knew anymore, the sister who'd clean up his messes. I was done protecting him. It was time to protect myself. I met Eudora at her office the next morning, my arms heavy with a folder of evidence, bank statements, the fraudulent credit card report emails, and the old loan agreements. Each document was a piece of Zephyr's betrayal laid bare. Eudora's eyes scanned the pages, her pen tapping a steady rhythm. "This is solid," she said, leaning back. "We can file a civil suit for identity theft and fraud, and I'll coordinate with the bank to ensure your accounts are secure. But Seraphine, there's another option, a public move. Confront him where he can't hide with witnesses. It's riskier, but it could stop him cold." My heart raced. A public confrontation. The idea terrified me, but it also felt right. Zephyr had spread his lies in public at bars and family gatherings. Why shouldn't I expose him the same way Eudora helped me plan? We learned Zephyr was speaking at a local business networking event that weekend, pitching some vague investment opportunity at a community center in Columbus. It was the kind of thing he loved, charming a crowd, playing the big shot. Perfect. I'd confront him there with Eudora and Aurelia by my side and the evidence in my hand. The thought of facing him in front of strangers made my stomach churn, but I remembered Thessaly's words. "You're not alone." I wasn't. I had allies, and I had the truth. The day of the event, November's chill seeped through my coat as I stood outside the community center. The parking lot buzzed with cars, the air sharp with the scent of fallen leaves. Aurelia squeezed my hand, her face set. "You've got this, Sarah," she said. Eudora, in a crisp blazer, nodded. "Stick to the plan. We're right here." Inside the room was packed maybe 50 people in folding chairs, sipping coffee, listening to Zephyr at a podium. He looked polished, his smile wide, talking about financial freedom. My chest tightened. This was the man who'd forged my name, who'd lied to our family, who'd made me doubt my own worth. I waited until his speech ended, the applause fading. My legs felt like jelly, but I stood clutching my folder and walked to the front. The room went quiet, eyes on me. Zephyr's smile froze. "Sarah," he said, his voice too loud. "What are you doing here?" I took a breath, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "I'm here to tell the truth, Zephyr. You've been lying about me, saying I stole Mom's inheritance. You told everyone I'm hiding money, but that's not true. What is true is that you opened a joint account in my name without my permission, tried to transfer $10,000 from my savings, and took out a $5,000 credit card in my name." The room gasped. Zephyr's face reddened, his hands gripping the podium. "Sarah, this isn't the place," he started, but I cut him off, holding up the credit card statement. "This is the place. You did this in public, so I'm answering in public. You used my social security number, my trust, to steal from me. And I have proof." I turned to the crowd, my voice rising. This man isn't who he says he is. He's not a businessman. He's a liar who betrays his own family. Eudora stepped forward, handing out copies of the bank documents to the stunned audience. Aurelia stood beside me, her presence a shield. Zephyr sputtered, his charm crumbling. "You're blowing this out of proportion, sis." It was a mistake, but the crowd was murmuring, flipping through the papers. A man in a suit stood shaking his head. "You expect us to invest with you after this?" he asked. Others nodded, gathering their things. Zephyr's eyes darted, panic setting in. "Sarah, let's talk outside," he pleaded, but I shook my head. "No more talks. You made your choices." I turned and walked out, Aurelia and Eudora behind me, the locket bouncing against my chest with each step. Outside, the cold air hit like a wave, but I felt lighter than I had in months. My hands still shook, but it wasn't fear, it was release. I'd done it. I'd faced him not with anger or tears, but with the truth sharp and undeniable. For years, I'd carried Zephyr's weight, his mistakes, his lies. In that moment, I let it all go. The locket felt warm against my skin, like Mom was there proud. But there was a pang, too, a flicker of grief for the brother I'd lost, the boy who'd once looked up to me. I pushed it down. That boy was gone. Zephyr's reaction was immediate. As we reached Aurelia's car, he burst out of the center, his face a mix of rage and desperation. "Sarah, you humiliated me?" he shouted, his voice echoing in the lot. "You think this is over? You'll regret this." Aurelia stepped between us, her voice low. "Leave her alone, Zephyr. You did this to yourself," Eudora added. "Threaten her again, and we'll add harassment to the lawsuit." He backed off, his hands raised, but his eyes burned with something dark, anger, maybe, or fear. He stormed to his truck and sped off, tires squealing. In the car, Aurelia hugged me, tears in her eyes. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. Eudora smiled. "That was a power move, Seraphine. He's rattled." I nodded, but I was still processing. I'd taken back my voice, my truth. But at what cost? Zephyr's threat lingered, and I knew he wouldn't go quietly. Still, for the first time, I felt free, not just from his lies, but from the weight of trying to save him. I'd saved myself instead. The hum of Aurelia's car engine filled the silence as we drove away from the community center, the November dusk settling over Columbus like a heavy quilt. My hands still trembled from the confrontation, but the locket against my chest felt like an anchor grounding me. I'd done it. I'd faced Zephyr in front of a room full of strangers, exposed his lies, and watched his carefully crafted facade crack. His shouted threat, "You'll regret this," echoed in my mind, but for the first time in months, I wasn't afraid. I was free, or at least starting to be. Aurelia reached over, squeezing my hand. "Sarah, you were incredible back there," she said, her voice thick with pride. Eudora in the back seat chimed in. "He's on the ropes now, Seraphine. But brace yourself. He's not done fighting." I nodded, staring out at the city lights. I knew Zephyr too well. He wouldn't slink away quietly. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a voicemail from Zephyr left at 2 a.m. His voice was slurred, angry. "Sarah, you think you can ruin me? I was just trying to get what's mine. You'll see. I've got friends, people who'll back me up." The message ended with a muffled curse. I saved it, my stomach twisting, and forwarded it to Eudora. She called within the hour. "This is good evidence," she said. "It shows intent and hostility. We're filing the civil suit for fraud and identity theft this week, and I'm requesting a restraining order based on that threat. Keep documenting everything." Her calm professionalism steadied me, but I couldn't shake the image of Zephyr's furious eyes in the parking lot. What friends was he talking about? What was he planning? Zephyr's counterattack came swiftly. By midweek, I started hearing whispers from neighbors and church friends. Someone, Zephyr, I was sure, had spread a new story, that I'd fabricated the bank documents to frame him, that I was the one trying to cheat him out of Mom's non-existent fortune. A cousin texted me confused. "Sarah, Zephyr says you're lying about the credit card. What's going on?" At the grocery store, a cashier I'd known for years gave me a wary look, her usual chatty warmth gone. The rumors stung, but they weren't as sharp as before. I'd expected this. Zephyr was lashing out, trying to claw back his credibility, but he'd underestimated me. I wasn't the same woman who'd stood frozen in my kitchen, clutching an ice bucket months ago. I fought back in my own way, not with rumors, but with action. Eudora advised me to go public with my story, but in a controlled way. "You've already taken the first step," she said. "Now, own the narrative." With her help, I drafted a letter to our extended family and close friends, explaining the truth, Zephyr's forged accounts, the credit card, the lies about Mom's inheritance. I included copies of the bank statements and credit report redacting sensitive details. Aurelia helped me mail it out, her hands steady as she sealed the envelopes. "This feels like a weightlifting," she said, smiling. I nodded, but my heart was heavy. I hated airing our family's mess, but silence had only let Zephyr's lies fester. The letter had an immediate effect. My phone lit up with calls and texts. Cousins, aunts, even Dad's old fishing buddy, all shocked and supportive. "Sarah, we had no idea," one aunt wrote. "We're behind you." At church, the friend who'd questioned me apologized, tears in her eyes. "I should have known better," she said. The community's warmth wrapped around me like a blanket, but it also deepened my grief. Zephyr had been part of this circle too. Now he was isolating himself, burning bridges with every lie. I also took practical steps to protect myself. Eudora worked with the bank to close the fraudulent accounts and remove the $5,000 credit card debt from my name. The process was grueling, endless forms, phone calls, notarized statements, but each step felt like reclaiming a piece of my life. I changed my social security number, a precaution Eudora insisted on, and updated my will to ensure Zephyr had no claim to my estate. Cornelius, who I'd finally told everything, was furious but supportive. "Sarah, you're doing the right thing," he said, his hand warm on mine. I wish I'd seen through him sooner. His anger mirrored mine, but his love gave me strength. Amid the chaos, New connections blossomed. Thessaly, my co-worker, became a rock. Over coffee breaks, she shared her own story of cutting ties with a toxic sibling, her words a lifeline. "You're not losing family, Sarah," she said. "You're choosing who deserves to be in it." Her wisdom pushed me to reach out beyond blood ties. I joined a local book club, something I'd always wanted to try, and found solace in the lively debates and shared laughter. One member, a retired teacher named Sibylla, became a fast friend. She'd faced her own family betrayals and understood my pain. "You're building a new family," she said one evening, passing me a slice of her homemade apple pie. Her words stuck with me, a reminder that family wasn't just who you were born with, it was who stood by you. But Zephyr wasn't done. A week after the confrontation, he showed up at my house unannounced. Cornelius was at a doctor's appointment, and I was alone folding laundry in the living room. The doorbell rang, and there he was, his face haggard, eyes bloodshot. "Sarah, we need to talk," he said, his voice low. My pulse spiked, but I kept the screen door locked. "There's nothing to say, Zephyr," I replied, my voice firm. "You need to leave." He leaned closer, his hand on the doorframe. "You're ruining my life," he said. "I made mistakes, okay? But you didn't have to destroy me in front of everyone. Just give me a chance to fix this." His tone shifted, almost pleading, but I saw the calculation in his eyes, the same charm he'd used to manipulate me for years. I took a step back, clutching my phone. "You fixed nothing when you stole from me," I said. "You lied, you forged my name, you hurt me. Get off my property, or I'm calling the police." He stared, stunned, then laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "You've changed, sis," he said, shaking his head. "You used to care." He turned and left his truck rumbling down the street. I locked the door, my heart pounding, and called Eudora. She filed the restraining order that afternoon, citing his visit as evidence. "He's desperate," she said. That's when people slip up. The encounter shook me, but it also clarified something. Digging through old emails for Eudora, I found a message from Zephyr sent a year ago asking about a storage unit Mom had kept. I'd forgotten about it, a small unit in Dayton filled with her furniture and papers. Zephyr had claimed it was junk, but now I wondered. On a hunch, I drove to the facility the next day, the locket warm against my skin. The manager let me in, and there among dusty boxes was a locked safe. Inside were Mom's real estate documents and a savings account statement in her name with a balance of $75,000 untouched since her death. My breath caught. This was the fortune Zephyr had been chasing, not some mythical inheritance. He'd known about it, maybe found it during Mom's final days, and built his lies around it, thinking I'd hidden it. The discovery was a gut punch. Zephyr hadn't just betrayed me, he'd been planning to steal Mom's legacy using me as a scapegoat. But it also gave me power. I transferred the account to my name with Eudora's guidance, ensuring Zephyr couldn't touch it. Standing in that storage unit surrounded by Mom's things, I felt her strength in me. Zephyr had underestimated us both. The storage unit's dim light cast shadows over Mom's old furniture, the air thick with dust and memory. Holding the savings account statement, $75,000, Mom's secret legacy, I felt a surge of clarity. Zephyr had built his lies around this money, convinced I'd hidden it, but he'd never understood Mom's heart. She'd saved it for us, her children, not to divide us, but to give us security. I'd found it not because I was greedy, but because I was finally looking out for myself. The locket around my neck seemed to pulse with her strength, whispering that I was enough. For years, I'd defined myself by what I gave to others, especially Zephyr. Now, standing among Mom's things, I realized I didn't need his approval or anyone's to know my worth. Back home, I sat with Cornelius at our kitchen table, the statement between us. His eyes widened as I explained the safe, the money, Zephyr's scheme. "Sarah," he said, his voice soft, "you've been carrying so much. "What do you want to do with this?" I thought of Zephyr's threats, his desperate visit to our doorstep, his belief that this money was his ticket out of trouble. I could have kept it locked away a secret to protect, but that wasn't me. Instead, I saw a chance to build something new, something that honored Mom and the woman I was becoming. With Eudora's help, I secured the $75,000 in a trust split 3 ways: one share for me, one for Aurelia, and one for Aurelia's kids' future, ensuring Zephyr couldn't touch it. Eudora's civil suit against him was moving forward, and the restraining order kept him at a distance. The Columbus rumor mill had quieted my letter to family and friends, having shifted the narrative. Zephyr's friends at the bar stopped defending him when Eudora sent a cease and desist letter to Murphy's warning against defamation. He was alone now, his charm no match for the truth. But this wasn't about Zephyr anymore, it was about me. I started small, reclaiming pieces of myself I'd neglected. I used part of my share to enroll in a community college art class, something I'd loved as a kid, but abandoned for family duties. My first painting of vibrant Ohio sunset, all oranges and purples, wasn't perfect, but it was mine. Sibylla, my book club friend, hung it in her living room, calling it a masterpiece of courage. Her words made me laugh, but they also made me proud. I was creating again, not just for others, but for myself. I also launched a project close to my heart. Inspired by Thessaly's stories and Mom's savings, I partnered with a local nonprofit to start a financial literacy program for women my age. Too many of us, I realized, had been blindsided by family or finances, trusting too much and protecting too little. The program taught budgeting, fraud prevention, and estate planning, things I wished I'd known before Zephyr's betrayal. At our first workshop, I stood in front of 20 women, the locket gleaming under the fluorescent lights, and shared my story. "You are not your mistakes," I told them, my voice steady. "And it's never too late to take control." Their nods, their tears, their questions afterward felt like a chorus of strength. I wasn't just healing, I was helping others heal too. Aurelia and I grew closer than ever. She apologized for not seeing Zephyr's lies sooner, but I waved it off. "We're here now," I said. We spent evenings planning her kids' college applications, laughing over old photos, rebuilding the family Zephyr had tried to fracture. Cornelius, too, was my rock, his quiet support, a reminder of what real love looked like. One night, as we sat on our porch, the autumn air crisp, he took my hand. "Sarah, you're glowing," he said. "You're not just surviving, you're thriving." I smiled, the locket warm against my skin. He was right. The legal battle with Zephyr wrapped up quietly. He settled out of court, agreeing to repay the $5,000 credit card debt and cover my legal fees, though I doubted he'd ever pay it all. Eudora called it a win, but to me, the real victory was letting go. I didn't need Zephyr's apology or his money to move forward. I'd found something better myself. On a clear December evening, I drove to a hill outside Columbus, a place Mom used to take us as kids to watch the stars. The city sparkled below a patchwork of lights against the winter dark. I held the locket, its gold worn but warm, and thought of the journey I'd taken. From the pain of Aurelia's birthday, the shock of Zephyr's lies, to the fire of that community center confrontation, I'd walked through betrayal and come out stronger. I wasn't the Sarah who'd begged Zephyr to love her back. I was Seraphine Quill, a woman who'd learned to love herself. I opened the locket, revealing Mom's tiny photo inside her smile, soft and knowing. "I did it, Mom," I whispered. "I'm okay." The wind carried my words, and for the first time I felt truly free, not just from Zephyr, but from the need to prove my worth. I stayed there watching the stars until the cold crept in, then drove home, ready for whatever came next. This is my story, but it's also a reminder, no matter how deep the hurt, no matter how heavy the betrayal, you have the power to rewrite your ending. It's never too late to stand up, to choose yourself, to build a life that shines. I did it at 58, and so can you. That night, under the stars, I found peace, but I also found purpose. My journey through Zephyr's betrayal taught me that our strength isn't in avoiding pain, it's in rising from it. I'm Seraphine Quill, and at 58, I've learned that no betrayal, no lie can dim the light you carry inside. But I want to hear from you. Have you faced a moment where you had to stand up, reclaim your voice, or choose yourself? Maybe it was a family member, a friend, or even your own doubts holding you back. Whatever it is, your story matters. Share it in the comments below. Let's build a community where we lift each other up. Your voice is powerful, and someone out there needs to hear it. Subscribe, join us, and let's keep this conversation going. Because no matter your age or your scars, it's never too late to write a new chapter.
Subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from, because this story is about to take you on an emotional journey you won't soon forget.